Hi, I'm John Crook. I'm the owner of Crook Cycle Right, and welcome to the Cycle Right series. What we're going to be talking about today is the skeletal and muscular structure as it relates to cycling. Okay, here we are at Skeleton Man in the cycling studio, and I want to go over the skeletal structure that's important to your cycling position. So, when we measure a cyclist, we're looking at points in the skeletal structure to align and to gather dimensions for the proper position. So the distance between the ankle pivot point and the ball of the foot, where you drive your pressure down through the pedal. The lower leg, the upper leg up to the point of the femur, the girdle from the sit bones to the iliac crest, the upper body, and then measuring the arms down through from the point of the shoulder, elbows, and then down into the grip. Now, these are all important because your girdle will pivot at one angle, your torso will pivot at a much greater angle, and your legs will pivot from this point down through the contact with the pedal. A lot of people measure as a substitute the distance to somewhere here where you're looking at the inseam measure. Now, while it's a good approximation of a measure, it really isn't the same as measuring the point, the sit bone point, where you're actually contacting the saddle, and how that relates to the pivot point of the upper leg and the trunk and the arms, so that we get the proper distance from the pedal to the saddle, measuring from the sit bones to the ball of the foot, and then we get the proper measure from the saddle point out to the arms by making these other measures. So that we don't approximate the measures, we actually measure each individual's skeletal structure. Now, why is this important? Because each individual has a different dimension across all of these different skeletal structures. As an example, I have a longer femur than average for the length of my leg. Now, this is really important when you start thinking about some of the fit systems that are employed. For example, the knee over the pedal spindle. So by having a longer femur in relation to my leg, I would actually be sitting farther back on a bike than someone with a shorter femur. And that's why when we talk about the knee over the pedal spindle fit, it doesn't have a lot of basis in physics. It really just relies on an oddity of someone's skeletal measure. Here we are with No Skin Man in the cycling studio, and what I wanted to show you is the muscular structure of the human body. So, as we were discussing when we were talking about inflating the bike tires, you use the large muscles in the upper arms, shoulders, and across the back when you really want to work, and you're using the smaller muscles of the forearm as stabilizing muscles. At the same way, you would use the muscles in the calf as stabilizing muscles, and the very large muscles in your upper leg and across your glute as the driving muscles while you're cycling. So it's really important to put yourself in a position so that you're using these muscles for stabilization and these muscles to drive yourself while you're cycling. With that, this concludes the skeletal and muscular structure discussion of the Crook Cycle Right series. So we'll see you again when we move on to the cycling position, theory, and myths. See you soon.